And hello again. We're on the ground here at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, SeaTac, KSEA. And yes, your eyes are not deceiving you. That is FlyJSim Boeing 727 in Boeing house colors. And the purpose of this flight is twofold here. I want to spend a little more time introducing you to this amazing airplane, and I don't mean this amazing model of an airplane, but I mean this amazing airplane, the 727. Airplane of my youth, airplane of the jet ages, teen years, I suppose you'd call it. The preeminent short and medium haul aircraft of its type anywhere in the world, and until the utterly mediocre 737 just kept going and going and going and going and getting longer and longer and longer with bigger and bigger and bigger engines, the 727 was the best-selling airliner in the world. It, in a lot of ways, superseded the 707, even though initially, in its shorter form, was intended really to snuggle in below the 707, to fly into smaller airfields with shorter runways. But if you look at it here, let's pop outside. If you look at the fuselage, you'll notice something familiar. It is identical to the 707's fuselage, with the exception of the wing box right here. The form, the shape, the width, all the dimensions are virtually identical, and actually, if you look at the length of it, the length of this airplane in its stretched form is identical to the length of the 707, which when it came out was the largest airliner on Earth. So it is as big as the 707, but the differences are very apparent. There is this wing here, which is enormously swept and has a collection of amazingly high-tech for the time, high-lift devices. Of course, it has a T-tail, which generated a little bit of controversy in the time, for deep stall characteristics, because what would happen is, and I'll clarify this in a minute, what would happen generically is that high angles of attack, the wing would basically get in the way of the elevator here, and there would be no elevator effectiveness because it would be blanked by the wing. Now, as it turns out, that was not a big problem in the 727. It was an enormous problem in the BAC 111 because the T-tail was much lower down, which meant that it got in the way. Virtually the only way to get into a deep stall with this aircraft would be to be in such a ridiculous attitude that you would never assume in real life in any situation, probably. So that was not quite the problem. There are some other flight characteristics of this airplane that are worth mentioning, and we'll talk about when we get in the air. But really, what made this thing such an amazing airplane was that this was Boeing's first all-hydraulic airliner. The 707 had a mix of hydraulic and mechanical controls, and it was a much more truck-like, much heavier, much slower to handle, sluggish airplane. This, on the other hand, was considered a real pilot's airplane, and one of the reasons why is because it has hydraulic systems to run everything. Two main systems, one electrically driven, the other driven by the engines, and a third standby system, and together they provided an airplane that was light on the controls, pleasant to fly with your fingertips, docile in most respects, and just all around fun even. And with those high lift devices and a lot of high drag devices available, and landing gear that you could drop at almost any reasonable speed, it made for an airplane that could also descend very quickly. So you could fly high and fast until you got into a crowded airspace, and on arrival you could wait until almost the last minute. And look at this, you can drop your gear at 270 knots, and you can fly with it extended at up to 320 knots. And you could bring in as much as 15 degrees of flaps, no, as much as 20 degrees of flaps, and still be above 200 knots. So this was an airplane that you could get very draggy, very fast, and of course that could also cause problems. You'll notice when we come in to arrive, our power setting is going to be right about here, and that's on flaps 30. On flaps 40, it would be about there. So this is an airplane where you were on landing on the back side of the airplane's power curve, which is not unusual for a jet, and not unusual actually for a short takeoff and landing bush plane, but was very unusual for a DC-6 or 7 or a Lockheed Electra or any other plane that basically came in mostly nose down, and at about 100 feet you could idle the power and be just fine. In this airplane, if you idled the power at 100 feet, you would fall out of the sky and you would slam into the pavement. As a matter of fact, if you idle the power even at 30 feet too precipitously and you overflare just very slightly or flare just a little too high, you would also land with a big thunk. But this airplane could also be landed smooth as silk if you do it right, and we're going to try and do that too. So what we're going to do here, we're in Orbx's Washington scenery, by the way. So what we're going to do is we are going to fly this airplane, and it's in Boeing house colors for a reason, back to its factory, which is in Renton, which is a very short strip, and we'll drop it in there. And then we'll fly around a little bit more, and we'll land at Boeing Field, which is where the planes were often delivered from. And then we will fly it up to Payne Field in Everett, which is where the successors to the 727 were made, although the 737 continues to be made in Renton. So with that, we're really not going to do any navigating, and we're really not going to do a lot of high altitude flying. We may even do just a lot of hand flying, to tell you the truth, just so that you can get a sense of the scenery and everything else. This is Drevetsky's Seattle airport scenery, which, by the way, can be made to work with the Orbx Washington State scenery. What you have to do is you have to disable the Drevetsky's terrain or mesh, so that everything, pardon the pun, meshes up. The other thing I'm going to do is I've turned off weather just so we can have a nice clear day, but I just want to see what our altimeter setting is. It's 3026. So we will set that here. And you notice we get the altimeter disagree up on the what passes for a warning panel. It's actually an instrument comparator. And we'll set 3026 here. And you notice that light stays on because it's comparing, well, it would stay on if I hadn't turned it off. It compares left to right. So we'll just be good pilots, set it all around. That way, if our co-pilot decides he needs to take control, he will know how high up he is. I'm not going to tune in any nav aids, and I'm only cursorily going to put 6,000 feet in here. I'm not sure we're going to get up that high. These are such short hops. This airplane goes very fast. if you wanted to. But let's get on out of here. We've got a load of passengers, bit of fuel. Just going to set our trim here. We've already bugged our speeds, and I'm just going to, well, I was going to bug a climb speed, but we're not going to climb, so I'm just going to leave it here. It is always useful to set a bug, for instance, for landing, which is for VAP, which is this plus 5, say. Not because you wouldn't remember what the speed is, but because in the heat of the moment, it is always easier to fly to a big orange bug than it is to fly to a memorized number. So whenever you can, bug up your speeds. And let's just taxi out to runway 34 right, and we'll depart here. We'll head out over Seattle, and then we will come in to Renton Field. So let's get this dog and pony show on the road here. This airport and Drevetsky's airports are good, but they're not astounding. They've got some terrain issues, some floating buildings. They're not updated often enough, and the support is cursory at best, but they're kind of the best we got here, and they're not terrible. Some of their other airports, I think, well, their New York airports are also, I mean, these are all like sort of B minus airports. Their New York city scenery is very good. You know, it's kind of a mixed bag. Again, this airplane was designed for very short runways, so you're going to find we're not really going to be using up a ton of real estate here. And the other thing I want to do is just, I think we're okay on visibility, but I think I'm going to try and set it a little bit farther away, just so that you can get a sort of grand sense of the scenery. Sense of the scenery. Well, you could ski up in that mountain there. I believe that's Mount Rainier, or actually Mount Rainier, or Mount something with an R. I don't know. I don't even know to say Oregon and not Oregon, but that's just me. All right, so we're going to pull up here at the hold short line. Going to toss on the parking brake. We're going to do something we should have done as we're taxiing. We'll set our takeoff flaps. We'll drop this into TARA. We've got a special flight plan, which is basically cleared to hoon around the skies of Seattle. Get our lights on here. Get all lit up. Get our strobe on, because these are FlyJSim things, and we got to do them. Just check our fuel quantities, check everything else there. That's all good. I'm just checking our duct pressure and seeing if we could actually pressurize if we wanted to, making sure that that this is on flight, and it is. We'll set our auto brake to RTO, and you know, I mean, for what we're doing, this is what we're doing. So this is good enough. And you know what I will do, though, is, again, let me just see if I can just change our visibility a little bit. It doesn't quite seem like, well, you know, that's just X-plane for you. All right. So we'll check approach, check the other end. We're good to go. We'll take the runway. Our flaps are set. Our trim is set. We're going to use that as our EPR. I'm going to hold slight forward pressure on the yoke until we get to 80, and then I'm going to relax it. I'm not going to pull back at all. I'm just going to lighten up what I got. And let's just do a rolling takeoff here, because why the hell not? So we'll stand up the thrust levers. And noting that they're stable, we'll advance to takeoff power. Now notice how quiet it is. That's the engines are in the back. That was okay. Relax our forward pressure, maintain center line. That was a big advancement at the time. Now I'm going to two-step rotate here. I'm going to rotate a little bit gently off the deck, and then so I don't scrape the tail, I'm going to wait 2, 3, and now I'm going to pull up to 15 degrees. It's just a sort of double check there to make sure that we don't have a tail scrape. Okay, up can come the gear, and you can start to see the Seattle area. I'm just going to bank out to the west a little bit here, and as we do, since we're not climbing very far, I'm going to set climb thrust now. Notice how we're maintaining about 60, and now I'm hands off. This is a very stable, very benign, very rewarding airplane to fly. It does not give us much problems. I think we're going to cruise around with our slats down here. We're just coming over Vashon Island here, and let me just loop around here so I can show you some more of the scenery. I've changed the water a little bit so that it's not the horrible X-plane repeating textures. I think it's with a Lua script of some sort. And we'll just go to slats now, and I don't know, we'll level off at 4,000 feet. And again, this airplane is light on its feet. It's still a big airplane, so it still takes a long time to do things. All right, we'll set close to a cruise thrust about here as we turn over Vashon here. And we're going to point ourselves at the, I was going to say at the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, but it's actually now the Tacoma Narrows Bridges, because there are now 2 of them. And we'll fly over the Tacoma Airport, which is a nice little airport. And actually, this airplane certainly could land in it. And as we climb here, climbing a little too gently for my own good here. There are some characteristics of this airplane I'll show you once we get leveled off that make it just a lot easier to fly than even the 737, which is a pretty tame airplane too. I mean, all Boeing airliners, well, until they started killing people with their software, generally speaking, are designed to be tame. It's the whole point of them. They're designed so that any reasonably competent, trained pilot can fly them. Still getting my visual references right here as to which little spot on the windshield equates to level flight, but it's about there. So anyway, as we level off here, let me just get our trim set. I'm barely touching the controls again, and that is both a characteristic of the FlyJSim flight model and also of the real airplane. It's an airplane that doesn't require a hell of a lot of work on the pilot's part, except idiots like me who can't quite stick to level flight. I shouldn't be looking at that, I should be looking outside. But anyway, we'll come over the Tacoma Narrows bridges, and the one thing you'll notice as we come along here is that the shorelines are all beautifully done, rendered to the point where you can see docks in the water, which is probably better than dogs in the water. So these are the Tacoma Narrows we're coming through, and that over there is McChord Air Force Base, or it's probably at this point called Joint Base McChord, because everything is a joint base. But you see, look at these shorelines here. see how neatly this is done? There's no sort of halo around it. And also the trees follow the ortho. These are hand-placed trees. And these are, I guess, the Tacoma docks here. And that's Mount Rainier again. Or a can of Shasta soda, I don't know which. And in the meantime, what we'll do is we'll come back over SeaTac. Yeah, here, you see what I'm saying right here? The little docks and the little shorelines are all done really to a T. And there's an option to make the roads transparent so that the small side streets don't stick out the way they do ordinarily in X-plane. And let me just get back that 300 feet we just lost there. We're going to be flying, that's SeaTac, that is Boeing Field, and that is Renton right over there. So we'll come out over the city, and then we will drop into Renton. I won't do a touch and go because I want you to see the landing performance here, and also I might get a lousy landing, so you know, I want to have a chance to do another full takeoff and another good landing somewhere else. This is mainly not for your education. It's mainly so that at least I can get one non-embarrassing landing out of this this whole adventure. Again, look at these coastlines here. They're really well done. And the tree placement is very, very well done. There's not a lot of stray trees. The only stray trees you'll generally find are near the Dravetsky airports because they have their own exclusion zones, their own trees and roads. And, you know, they were not obviously designed with the Orbx scenery in mind. They were designed long before Orbx Washington came on the scene, which was, I believe, yesterday. So this is the tip of Vashon Island. That's Vashon Municipal Airport right there, which we cannot land at. It's a shame. And in the meantime, again, just demonstrating the overall stability of this airplane. You know, there's some turbulence, and basically I'm just flying this with my fingertips, and there's no reason why you should have to do any more than that. Now, as we head towards the city over Boeing Field, you'll begin to, actually that's Boeing Field right there. There it is. You'll begin to see the amazing cranes and other pieces of docklands here in Seattle. And I mean, what impressed me is just how natural this all looks. This looks like you're flying over a picture. Some of it is not especially exciting like that, but it's also very, very real. It doesn't look cartoonish. The trees are not overdone. I'm just going to roll off a little bit of power here. Come down a little bit. But you can see right over here, first of all, they've replaced all the power lines with nice thin power lines. The docks here look great. They've hand placed all sorts of things like these tank farms here. And this isn't even their HD pack, which is coming out shortly, I hope. I'm going to start to descend, which is going to have higher quality textures for the buildings and so on. But look at the ships down here. They're nicely done. And again, the water lines here, even for the small little slips and docks, they're really nicely done. That cruise ship there doesn't just sit in the middle of nowhere. It sits in the context of a pier. All right, gonna arm our spoilers here. Let's get our landing speeds ready. Okay, we'll set the bugs for that. So 126, so 131 is going to be our VAP, and actually just a little bit less because this airplane tends to float. Set the bug right there, so we're going to fly to that bug. It's going to add up. See, look at this. Look at the little. Look at the docks here, and look at the aerials and the power lines, and the main drag here. The autogen is just beautifully placed. Let's see where we are here. All right. Let's come out over, I think this is Lake Washington. And this is I-5, and that's actually Everett up there. So let's come on in. Come down on the power here. Raise the nose just a touch. So we're going to lose some airspeed. Bring in flaps 5. That'll lose us some more airspeed. See, I'm about 5 degrees nose up right now. And we're probably a little high. So I'm going to actually do a little zigzag here over, I guess that's Redmond, unless it's Bellevue. No, it's Redmond. Bill Gates' house is somewhere around here. Alrighty. I'm going to set our auto brakes to medium. And even at this high speed, I'm going to bring down the gear, go flaps 15, and that's going to bring us down a lot. Let's see where we are. But you see how docile this is? There's nothing herky-jerky about it. There's nothing spasmodic. All right, we're fine. Renton is right there. Get a chance to do a nice stabilized approach here. I actually got configured a little bit early, but that's the island we're going to fly over there. I don't know the name of it, but we'll get some power in. And see how easily, there's no overshoot here, how easily this goes where you want it to go. I'm just bringing up the nose a little bit, bringing a little bit more power. Not that much power. All right, now, here is another really useful difference between this and the 737. The 737 mounts its engines in the wing, so if I go like this, instantly the airplane pitches up. Now in this, the airplane does pitch up because it speeds up, but because the engines are way in the back, there isn't that kind of pitch couple, which means I can make finer speed adjustments, and now I am high. The airplane's very slippery. I can make fine speed adjustments without the airplane suddenly pitching up or down. So it becomes a lot easier to position on an approach. So there's our runway there. There appear to be 2 mountains there, and I think they need to investigate that. Let's just start bleeding off the speed. Go to flaps 20. and flaps 25 and flaps 30. Now I am low power here. I do not want towards the end of my approach to get low on the approach and low on power. So for the moment I'm going to do my descending early. See the autogen tree placement is very good. And I'm going to start rolling in the power pretty damn quick as soon as we get near the edge of that island, if not sooner. Okay, we're still 2 whites, but we're going to get low and slow pretty quick. So see how draggy the airplane is? And the power plants take a little while to spool up.
1,000.
Okay, I'm going to trim for the slower speed. And actually I'm still a little bit high and a little bit fast, and this is a short runway and this airplane floats. So let's lose that energy. I don't want to dip too low, remember. Okay, I'm at 60% N1 and I'm sinking 1,200 feet per minute. So that's not where I want to be for long. So first, come up to about neutral pitch. And now I'm going to start bringing the power before I get low. There we go.
400.
I'm right on speed, just a little high.
300.
And I'm a little fast.
200.
See how short this runway is? So I'm really going to plant it.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. 20. 10.
There we go. You see a little bit of a float. Onto the reversers. Into the braking. And manual braking now. And reversers can come out. And here we are now in Renton, birthplace of this airplane. We'll turn it around and we'll go to Boeing Field, see where it was delivered. See if we can turn around here somewhere. All right, there's a turnaround bulb. Go back to flaps 15. We'll reconfigure for takeoff again. Actually, we'll use flaps 20 from here, and I'll show you what a pretty high performance takeoff looks like. Let's see, are we going to miss that? Yes. All right, so we'll get ready to go again. And I'll give you a closer look at Seattle downtown on this pass. And that was not the perfect example of a stabilized approach, but it kind of gets the job done. Let me show you what it looked like. And you'll see the float. There we go. All right. Little displaced threshold here. And we know how painful that can be. Still a little bit high, but you don't want to idle the power and then set up a sink rate that your engines can't spool up quickly enough to recover from. So even as you're sinking, you want to start trickling a little bit of power back in too. And you can see that's too much float for a runway this short. So So next time we're going to start bringing out the power sooner, because that could have been really ugly. And this particular, oh, that's not going to work. This particular model with, see, look at that flap edge. Look at that. It's practically disassembling the wings. And look at the shoreline there. Look at, even they've cleaned up right around these little docks. That is amazing. There we are on short final. Now you notice the power comes in now, but even a little bit of power right there can be enough to carry this thing too far, so you really have to be careful. A lot of airlines back in the day recommended that you be stabilized in this airplane by 1,500 feet, not 1,000 feet, which is true for most. Now you see, I flared a little too much, a little too high, and look at that little float. Luckily, the airplane has got great short field performance, so as you'll see. So we're gonna do flaps 20 this time, and we'll set our bugs, and we'll set our trim, and everything else is good. Well, we're not going to reject this takeoff. If we do, we'll do it pretty early in the game, but at any rate, make sure everything is where we want it to be. And this time we're going to stand on the brakes, and we're going to give ourselves full takeoff thrust. Can you tell I like flying this plane? Well, you know what? Screw it. Now we're going to come unstuck slower, and we're going to clean up more deliberately. Okay, I'm redlining the power right there.
80 knots.
And we're not going to clean up as quickly.
B1, rotate.
It seems to do that for no apparent reason. It seems to think that my spoilers are up, and for some reason they were. I don't know if that's because we bounced or what, but it's done that before at flaps 20, and I'm just glad we survived that. And that's a function of having plenty of power, not rotating too far. So let's go and look at Seattle now. And the approach to the approach into Boeing Field is quite something. But first, before we make that approach, let's just go over the same docklands we're going to come back over on our way into Boeing Field. Here, I'm just going to bring us up to flaps 5, and we should probably be another couple hundred feet up, but I mean, this is not Manhattan. They do have skyscrapers in Seattle, but they do not have skyscrapers in Seattle. I suppose I could do Tex Johnson's 1G roll over Lake Washington like he did in the 707 famously, but I don't know whether this airplane really can do it, or whether my yoke setup is going to give it the right input, and I don't want to just do anything for yucks, but we could practice a couple stalls here. It wouldn't be that hard, or we can do a little really abrupt descents here. But let's just first just take a look at just how damn good this all is. Just do some sim stuff right now. See, look at the quality of the dock detailing, and now there's the city, and I mean, that's as you'd expect it. It looks great. There's the Ferris wheel here, and the cruise ship there, and the oil tanker there, and the radio antenna farm over here we're coming up on also looks great. Just to give you some idea of how sporty this plane is, let's try and do a turn around a point here. I think I'm a little bit close to do this. Yeah, I am. I don't think we can do this, but let's try. Yeah, I'm pulling way too many G's here.
Bank angle. Bank.
And right now I'm actually putting an opposite aileron just to keep us from continuing to roll over a little bit. But you can see how, well, you'll see Boeing Field where we're going to come in. You can see how nicely the plane handles. There's not a lot of adverse yaw, there's not a lot of roll coupling, there's not a lot of anything. It just goes, as one 727 pilot said, what he loved about the plane is you could think it where you wanted it to go. It was a very instinctive airplane to fly, and very natural in its controls. So you didn't have to plan for any oddities, and what that really meant is that you could go about your business as a pilot and not have to fuss with it a lot. But look at the detail down there. All right, now let's come on into Boeing Field, so sort of get ourselves on a downwind leg here. Just level off here. Again, our landing, well, we're going to be bugged for that same speed, and that's about right. We haven't burned off that much fuel, so if anything, the landing speed will be a few knots slower, but no big deal. And while we're at it, set some auto breakage, get some gear down, arm our speed brakes, flaps 15, retrim, and we'll start to come in over the waterfront here. Now we are a little bit high. I'm going to do something that's not recommended, I think, and that is to slip the airplane. No, we're not grossly high. All right, there we go. No, we're perfect. Okay, so there's Boeing Field right ahead of us. And oddly enough, there's the outer marker. I'm going to let us slow, get fully configured now. And we're going to try and do sort of a hands-off approach here. So I'm going to, once we slow down, I'm going to advance to our approach power, which is going to be about 70. There we go. 70% N1. There we are. Retrim a little bit. Notice how our speed is right about where we want it. And notice how we're coming down about 700 feet per minute right there. And notice how we're red and white. So I'm just going to make tiny adjustments here. hold our target speed. We're just a little high. I don't like dragging this plane in for the reasons I mentioned before, which is that it's already behind the drag curve considerably, and it takes a long time for the engines to spool up. But we are a little high, and it does float a little bit. So we're going to try this time to, we're going to A, roll off the power sooner, but B, we're going to flare later. I'm going to resist the temptation, which I always get, which is to flare too soon. And again, I've gotten just a little too fast here. So I'm going to dip ever slightly below our glide path. There we are. And let that speed come off again, and then I'm going to trickle the power back in, but not yet. I'm right now 60% N1, which is low. And you can see us sinking. You see that sinkage? See the runway rising in our windshield? A little bit of turbulence here too. Little gusts here and there. Sound like George Bush Sr.
500.
Gonna get some gusts there, wouldn't be prudent. We're right on speed. We're right on path.
400.
Touch high. Oh, we're good.
50.
Now, not flaring.
30.
Not flaring.
20. 10.
Flaring. There we go. That's better. Hit a little bit hard, but that is much better than floating. We'll refine it in our next landing. But I want you to see what that looked like in the replay. That is much, much preferable than floating 1,500 feet down the runway, because that's how you slide off a runway. All right, so here, let's get out of the way here. Go back to takeoff flaps. And as soon as we get pulled off here, we'll play that again. Then we'll head up to Everett. All right, on can come the parking brake, and now this is the just little difference in technique. And I think what you'll see is you won't see a little hitch in the flare where you pause a little bit, the speed dies off, and then you go thump. This is more like flying it right in. So let's just see. See, we roll off power earlier. Oh, still, I still got a little bit of that. Yep. But let's see where we put it down. Yeah, that's much better. We put it down right there. And that, boys and girls, is a safer place to put it down. Not that you'd know from this map, but what you would know is from here and here, and let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, we put it down with a boatload of runway remaining instead of what we did the last time, which was put it down here on a much shorter strip where we didn't have as much room to play with. And by the way, nice looking rail yard here and nice looking everything here. So, all right, so let's head off to Everett, birthplace of the 747. And we'll have some fun. Rebug here. Flaps 15. Every 727 flight I ever took was flaps 15 takeoff. Never flaps 5. Don't know why. All right, back we go. Now, why did that do that? There we go. I think it was because I had my parking brake in. I don't know. All right, we'll do a little Southwest taxi, even though I don't think Southwest ever flew any 727s, except maybe by accident. Our frame rate here is 33, 34. That's not too bad. Actually, we should just take off from the taxiway here. We could do it. Practically flying here anyway. Burning up a little brake. All right, we'll do an intersection departure. Oh no, I'm gonna need till the end of the runway here to slow down. Otherwise, I'll overheat the brakes and we'll be stuck here. Though in fairness, there are worse places in the world to be stuck than in Seattle, which is just an amazing town. One of the most beautiful places on Earth. Look at the little radio transmitter setup they've got there. All right. Do another rolling takeoff. Point ourselves right at those piers. Okay, takeoff power set. 80.
knots. E1, rotate.
Okay, another little two-step rotation here. 1, we come unstuck. 2, we rotate fully. And look at that performance. And that's something, and we're not even climbing as quickly as we could. We could, if we want to, we could climb at V2 plus about, right about there, plus about 15 is right there. So the performance is sprightly. All right, so let's head up Interstate 5 towards Everett, and you know what we'll do? We'll just do the highest of high performance approaches here. We'll do flaps 40, which is going to require a gob of power. We're going to get the gear out early. We're gonna do everything possible to just drop ourselves down like a teacup. So we'll climb up to say 4,000 feet as we make our way up the interstate. Okay, we'll start to level off here. We're going to go from fully clean to fully dirty in very little time. Okay, so there's the highway. We'll just follow the highway. And I surprised myself the first time I flew in this way, exactly because I didn't realize how fast this airplane can go in so little time with so little power and effort. So let's get ourselves level. You can see we're already getting set to bust 250 knots. And I've already busted my altitude here. It's the second time I've done that. That's the runway we're going to be landing on. All right, there we go. You know, our gear is still down. I hit the key, but I didn't watch it. And that's bad. All right, so we're going to do a flaps 40 landing. Let's get our speeds. And I swear to God, as soon as we're done with, oh, it's not going to give us a 40. All right, I have to play it by ear. All right, so there's our runway. And as you can see, we're high and we're fast. So first, out come the spoilers. Okay, we can already put in flaps 5. Now it's barking at us because it doesn't want us to do flaps and spoilers, so we'll listen to it. We'll bring our spoilers out, bring our gear out. Now look at how high we are. Now that's the gear horn. Now, there we go. Okay, 3 greens. Okay, now we can do as much as flaps 20 right now. We can do 25 right now. Nosing down, you see? Okay, that's flaps 30. And now we're going to do flaps 40. I'm just going to bug down ever so slightly lower. Okay. And look at us come down. I mean, we are dropping. We're dropping like Wall Street in 1929, and we're going to have so much room to spare now. Look at that. We're pointing at the ground and we're going 150 knots. So start to bring the nose up. Okay, and I'm going to bring in the power early because look at how quickly we slow down. And look at how much we sink. We're already 1 red dot. Now, the rule of thumb here is that with flaps 40, you set about 5,000 pounds of fuel per hour for your speed, which adds up to about 80% N1. So we're just burning our way in here. And you can see our sink can get to be prodigious. And we're still a little fast here. So let's do a high performance landing here. So maximum flaps, maximum reverse, and maximum brakes. And I'm still fast, you can see. Now we're going to be a little bit nose high. And you can also see I've got a little bit of a pilot-induced oscillation here. That's my own ham-fistedness on the yoke, which I have yet to figure out. I'll fix that shortly. We're a little bit
500.
a little bit high. This is where you don't want to be with this flap setting.
400. Sink rate. Sink rate.
Is sinking a lot.
Sink
There we
rate.
go. Okay.
200. One sink rate. 50, 40, 30, 20.
That floated.
10.
All right, even with that float, let's see where we ended up. We ended up someplace just pretty damn short is where we ended up, I think. Yeah, look at this. We let's see. Our we ended up landing in 3,200 feet, give or take. So that is fun. I also roasted the brakes, but let's head back to SeaTac now, and that, by the way, is the that's the 747 assembly plant, or the actually now more like the 777 assembly line. That is one of the, it used to be, I don't know if it still is, the largest single enclosed space on Earth. And there's some new KC-46 tankers. And they also set up a passenger terminal here, so they're now flying passenger flights in and out of here, which I really want to do. I really want to take one of them. To fly in here with this kind of sense of history. This is where, of course, the first 747 flew from, and the first 777. Wasn't even a twinkling in the eye when the 727 rolled off the assembly line in 1963. But 3 years later, it would be. Truly amazing. And apologies on the yaw oscillation there, and also apologies on the long taxi now, because that arrival has left us with a long runway to taxi down. Okay, again we'll set ye old flaps 15. It's such a fun plane to fly. We'll do some stalls and steep turns on the way back. It's just a lot of fun. Take off, I want flaps 15. It does absolutely everything you want to do and nothing that you don't. All right, there's the factory. Here's the end of the runway. I'm surprised my brakes still work even a little bit. But before we go, take a look at some of the scenery here. You can see the transparent roads so that you see the ortho roads instead of, with the cars on them instead of the sort of X-plane generated roads. However, the hand-built roads here, the bigger ones, continue to show through, so it looks nice and neat. So there is the assembly line, and there is the sort of the parking spots where the airplanes are finished outside, and the interiors are put in, and all that. And there is again Seattle in the distance, and geez, this looks great. I mean, look at all the hand-placed buildings. They're all perfectly appropriate. They match the pictures. This is with number of objects set to high but not maximum, because I don't think anybody's computer can really fully handle maximum. This, I'm guessing right now, is where Dravetsky's ortho leaves off into Orbx's, and unfortunately, obviously, because they weren't designed at the same time, the color grading on them is a little bit different, but, you know, that you live with. And that's Bainbridge Island there, and let's do it to it. And this is why they were called whisper jets, by the way. It's not because they were quiet on the outside. They were unbelievably noisy on the outside, but because they're quiet on the inside.
D1, rotate.
Okay, now I'm going to make sure the gear comes up this time. And I'm going to have a little bit of a lighter touch here on the you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just very quickly do this. Sorry, apologies. Put a little dead zone. Ah, you see I've got not enough dead zone. There we go. Not pitch, I want that here. In roll, there we go. All right, let's see if that calms my spastic ass down here. Yeah, it does. Good, okay. Start to clean up here. Bring the nose down. Set climb thrust. Accelerate. And let's try some wing overs. Now there's a yaw damper on this plane, so it's not going to be able to do a perfect wing over. But up we go. I'm going to bring it just shy of our stalling speed. That's not what I wanted to look at. I wanted to look at that. There we go. Okay, we'll do a wing over to the right first, over the lake. Okay.
Bank angle. Bank angle. Bank
A little
angle.
bit of an oscillation there. That was my fault.
Sink
Okay.
rate. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Sink rate.
And we'll try one to the left for real this time. And again, you don't get that pitch couple, so now I'm almost at full power, but it's not snapping my nose up. As a matter of fact, the pitch remains just as kind of neutral as it always is in just about any power configuration. All right, off the power. And a little bit of stick shaker.
Bank angle.
And
Bank angle.
again,
Bank angle. Bank angle.
it's just
Bank angle.
beautifully
Bank
damped.
angle. Sink rate.
And we'll just roll wings level again.
Pull up. Pull up. Sink rate. Sink rate.
All right, do some steep turns here real quick. Let's just get leveled out, get configured. All right, 4,000 feet is fine. Do them to the left here. I'm going to add some power though.
Bank angle, bank angle, bank angle, bank angle.
Okay, we'll
Bank
hold
angle,
this.
Bank angle, 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 bank angle.
Okay, we'll do the full 360 here. I've actually pulled a little bit too much, gained a little bit of altitude. 300 feet.
Bank angle.
All right, there we are, and back around. The altitude's a little bit low for this, but let's just try a little 1G stall. So, actually we'll get in landing configuration. It is a little bouncy up here. All right, so approaching our VREF here. Trimming, trimming, trimming. Okay, now we're about 7 degrees nose up. And roll off the power. We'll get the stick shaker in a second. And getting a little oscillation. Don't know if that's the airplane or the model of the airplane, but we'll correct with rudder, and we'll roll wings level now that we've got some speed, and we'll add power now. Now, the nice thing about this plane is that adding a gob of power is not going to produce a secondary stall. It's not going to pitch you up and do that. But I don't know if that oscillation was me or the plane. I'll clean up, we'll go to CTAC here. Probably both. Nah, probably me. It is bouncy up here. You know what? We're lined up for Boeing Field. Let's just make a nice landing at Boeing Field here. That's where this plane belongs anyway. We're high, but again, high in this airplane is easily fixable. Now I'm hands off and we're bouncing around, so I guess it's the air. Look at that. That's totally hands off, and it's still hands off. That's pretty good. All right, down we go. Let's try and make this one good. Flaps 30. We'll do our descending now, not on short final. And boy, yeah, I'm totally hands off now. Literally not touching the yoke. Now I'm just going to retrim a little bit. But I mean, look at that. Trim for a slower speed here, right about there. And we're coming down. That's pretty amazing. Boy, look at that too. That's beautiful. All right, now that we're coming down at about our approach speed, I'm just going to trickle in a little more power, but still not all the way because we do need to descend just a bit more. Get a great view of those cranes there. They're actually known as Fraser cranes. I don't know if you knew that, but yes, that's a known fact. Those are Fraser cranes. The character in Fraser was named after those cranes, and that's also why they located the show in Seattle. So, and if you don't believe me, ask all your friends. They'll tell you. Yeah, I'm flying this like a single-engine Piper here. I'm keeping it way too high. Should know my place as an airline pilot and drag it in. I wonder if my rudder pedal's a little bit out of whack because it seems to be pulling a little bit. Maybe I'm pulling a little bit. All right, so nose comes up a little bit, trim comes back a little bit. That speed is going to settle down right about there. That's good. Our rate of descent is a little bit high, which it needs to be. Matter of fact, we're still a little bit high. I'm just going to actually push the nose down a little bit. Do we want to land on the short runway? No. No. That would be a cheap stunt. Do we? Shall we try? All right, this is going to require a little bit of footwork here. I'm just going to give it a little slip and a little more power in a second. Okay, one red. Yeah, we're going to land on this. Okay, time for the power. This is no place to be 1 dot high.
500.
I also don't know how long this runway is.
400.
There we go.
300. 200.
Come on, settle, airplane. There we go.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
And yes, a 727 really can land in that little distance, but in case you don't believe me, let's see that again. I am not unhappy with that, although I floated just a little bit. You saw that? Whew! All right, that's too far away. There we are. We're committing to the wrong runway here. With beautiful Seattle in the background. See how nose up we are? We're sort of dragging it in. Just clawing onto the air there. And there's my pilot oscillations. And here we are, just on the edge of a stall. Right over the numbers. Do we scrape the tail? No. All right, I do definitely want to see that again. Because who wouldn't want to see that again? Ooh, right on the edge of a tail scrape. Let's see. Ooh, do I? Now I'm curious. Let's see. You know, I don't think I do. Let's see. Whew. Pretty close. And now we really need the Hawaii 5-0 shot. Where's the runway? Good gravy. There is a runway here, isn't there? That's the big one. Ah, here we go. This is embarrassing. Gotta be a runway somewhere here. Aha. Oh ho. There we are. This is sick. This is totally sick. But I love it. Gotta do something about that pitch roll oscillation. Ooh, but that is the way you do it. All right, one last time. I love this sort of thing. All right, so there we are, right on speed here. Probably a little below speed because this is bugged for flaps 40 and we're using flaps 30. Meantime, I'm going to look up the runway here at Boeing Field and see how long that runway is. God, look at this. It is a little turbulent, but still I'm oscillating like crazy.
500. 400.
All right, Boeing Field, King County International Airport. This runway is 3,709 feet by 100, so it's not unbearably short, but it's short.
200.
It's like Meg's Field short.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
All right, and with that, I will leave it there, and we'll take a more extensive, more systematic flight with this airplane next time. Do a little navigation, we'll do a little autopiloting, we'll do a little cross-country, and maybe even do a little cold and darking, and we know how painful that can be. But in the meantime, here at the home of the Boeing 727, I'll leave it right there, and hope to see you all again next time. Bye-bye.